How you doing? I'm Big D. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break down how I built this. I'm going to give you all the measurements, and I'm also going to have in the description below the original designer of this on his channel. So if you want to hang out, and we'll go through it, and I'm going to use digital indicator along with a tape measure. Nothing too crazy, and I'll do it in inches and also millimeters. Stay tuned. First I'm going to do is I'm going to take it off. And then I'm going to go up to a table, and then we're going to go through all the measurements. And you'll see in the description below where I purchased the bearings and also the hardware. The plate I purchased through a local supplier, a metal supplier. I'm sure you could find all these things there, but in their local area. All right. So the plate measures about 10¼ inches long. Right about 4 inches wide. I'll check the thickness with the digital calipers. Okay, we're going to do it in inches first. The plate I'm not going to do in millimeters, but the smaller things that I can use the digital calipers for, I will do. Sorry about that. I'm trying to do this with just 2 hands. So it's right about 1/2 inch, 0.543 inches. Let's change that to millimeters. So 13.82 millimeters thick. And this is just something that I chose. Now the original designer of this, he used steel. And again, he hasn't given much information on any of the dimensions of what he used. So we'll go to the front. Now these bearings, they were purchased on Amazon, and like I said, I'm going to disclose that information in the description below. Same thing with these bearings. Same thing with the hardware that I purchased. All of the hardware was purchased on Amazon, except for this bolt here, which is a grade 8. I went with grade 8, a hardened bolt, just because of how much pressure is going to be applied when you're removing a tire or installing a tire. Now, let's see. Now the pieces that I used, those are as well the same thickness, the 13.82, or the 1/2 inch, roughly 1/2 inch thick. Drilled and tapped. Now drilled normal holes through, and then tapped the lower plate. And if you could see the hole I used a hole saw, just like what you would do if you were installing a door handle on a door, but it's for metal. Let me change this around. I'm going to have to flip this over. We'll start with millimeters, the metric system. It's 43, almost 40, 43, and a little over 43.5 millimeters. And that's the width. Let's convert it. Sorry about that with the video camera. That's 1.714, so 1 3/4 of an inch. Let me see if I can get it squeezed out a little bit more. So right about 1.25 inches hole. And then after I did the hole, I used a cutoff wheel and then sliced a couple of straight lines so it can be slid into the machine. And how far back in, if you were to guesstimate, which 1 3/4 inches, so let's see, so 1 3/4 inches, so roughly, which I should have done some more math, which I'm not real good at, but you see the distance is right about there. So that's 2.5 inches where the saw would actually be the furthest in. I hope that makes sense. So if you were to take 1 3/4 inches and go in, you would probably be, you would start to drill right about there. So obviously that's going to be a little eyeball that you're going to have to decide if you want to take the dimensions of this being 2.5 inches, and then it's 1 3/4 inches hole. You're going to have to do the math. I didn't do that. My apologies. Now this hole, where the actual bar goes into play, let me flip it again. I'll take the measurement and then show you. So it's a little over, if you were to use an 1 1/4 inches, and then I had to Dremel this out a little bit more to fit the bar. You don't want it really tight. You want it a little bit loose so it does move freely. So if that is 1.3 in inches, it's 33.16 millimeters. And I didn't do this in millimeters. I apologize. Let's see. We'll do it in millimeters and give you that heads up. This was 1 3/4 inches, and it's 44.146. And instead of 2.5 inches long, in metric it would be 63.56. Now these are all not perfectly detailed, but I'm sure you can actually come up with your own and it would still work. We'll flip it over now. Actually, we probably should do this first. Not sure if I'm going to be able to do this properly. You can see the shims that I have used. I used 2 plates of, let's see what this thickness is of aluminum that I used. We'll start with millimeters. How about that? Used 3.59 millimeters. Let's convert it. 0.14, so 0.14 inches. So I'm going to say that's right around 1/8 of an inch. Now, the thickness between this gap, so it doesn't lift up when you're pushing. Zero that out. That is going to be 0.355 inches. Sorry. Let's convert it. 9.05. And that is a little bit sloppy, which I have tried to come up with some other shims to make it tighter. You don't want it, look, again, this is something else that you do not want tight, but I think a little bit tighter is the way to go. I was considering, if you look down there, maybe bending that aluminum down a little bit without having to change out those washers for shims with a thinner washer. I just can't find a thinner washer yet. I'm not giving up yet. I got other options. Okay, so let's look at the length of my solid rod. It is right about 5¼ inches long. The bottom side, I cut a notch so it drops right into place. And that comes back right about, well, if you look at, let's do it this way. One more second. Oh, my apologies. One hand to do each thing. Okay, we got a little better measurement right there. It is about 3/4 of an inch back. I cut straight down with a cutoff wheel. Some people call it a muffler cutter, or a cutoff saw you could probably use even. Plasma cutter, whatever you want to use. And then I made this notch, ground it down on an angle. That way it drops right into place and it does the push properly. I'll give you a rough idea how far it goes back. It's probably right there. So it looks like about 1¼ inch. Hope that helps. Now this hole, there was so the pin can drop down further and bypass the plate. That is 33.67. Oh, I released it and it moved. Okay, let's 33.75 millimeters or 1.329 inches. So I'm thinking you should be able to come up with a rough idea where you would buy your materials. After you'll see them in the description is what I have, and then the rest of the pieces you're going to be able to come up with on your own, I'm sure. Now this is also one thing that's probably important, which is 4 1/4 inches back from this hole that is going to go through the actual main component of this turntable. So roughly 4 1/4 back, and then this slot, you're going to want to keep that as close to the turntable as possible, and that is, see if I can measure this properly. My measurements are correct, 7 3/8 of an inch. Roughly. Okay, well, if you have any questions that maybe I didn't cover, let me know. And I can see if I can come up with the information that you do need. I do want to point out, I was going to keep, see how I have a nut in between the little plate I made and the bearing? That is because I wanted more support so it doesn't rock as much. So I raised it up, these bearings, and it puts more support onto the bearings so it doesn't rock as much. And it's worked out very, very well. Leave some comments in the comment section, and please like, share, subscribe. It would really help the show. I do appreciate it, and I will be posting different how-tos. I have a lot of knowledge, and I'm going to start sharing them. Have a great day. God bless.